Alright guys, today we are in our instruction book on page 92 and 93. We are beginning lesson 10, which is how to solve multi-step problems. Last week we learned how to write the equations, and now we're going to take it a step further and solve those equations. So our very first question is, on a test, Lola scored 6 points on each of the first 3 questions and 4 points on each of the other 2 questions. Write an equation to find Lola's total score. I love how they wrote a table here, and they show us question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the first 3 questions, she got 6 points. So they went ahead and did 1, 2, 3. So the first 3 questions, she got 6 points. And 4 points on the 2 other questions. So that is how they came up with this little model table to show us. Write an equation to find Lola's total score. So let's fill this out so that we can understand each of the steps that we go through to write that equation. We're going to write an expression. Remember, expression is just like an equation but without the equal sign, okay? That represents Lola's score on the first 3. So we're only looking at the first 3 questions. Write an expression, so plus, multiply, minus, divide, that represents these points that she got. So I'm going to say 1, 2, there are 3 6's, so I can do 3 times 6. Now there are other options that you could do. You could do 6 plus 6 plus 6, okay? We're going to stick with multiplying because it's faster. 3 times 6. Now write an expression that represents Lola's score on the other 2. So if I look at these 2, I have 2 4 points. 2 times 4. What operation can be used to combine her scores on the first 3 questions with her scores on the other 2? Oh, so combine. If we are putting them together, we can add them. So I'm going to group them together with parentheses. 3 times 6 for the first 3 questions plus 2 times 4 for the last 2 questions. So look at that. There's an expression, but we're still not done because we need to find an equation. An equation has an equal sign. Choose a letter to represent Lola's total score and write an equation that could be used to solve the problem. So we could use S for score. We could use L for Lola. So use whatever letter you want. I'll use an L for Lola's score is equal to 3 times 6 plus 2 times 4. Now, what was Lola's total score on the first 3 questions? So the first 3 questions are represented by 3 times 6. And I know 3 times 6 right away. If I don't know it, I can count by 6's 3 times, or I can count by 3's 6 times. So I'm going to count by 6's 3 times. And I'm going to say 6, 12, 18. What was Lola's total score on the last 2 questions? 2 times 4 is 8. Now, what was Lola's total score on all questions? So we are going to add these 2 numbers together, 18 plus 8. So 8 plus 8, if I add my ones column, I'm going to get 16, and I'm going to carry my 10, and that is going to equal 26 points. All right. Now, if we move over to page 93, they're going to explain to us that there is often more than one way to solve an answer to a problem. Here's one way. The bar model shows one way to think about the problem about Lola's scores. So they drew a picture, that bar model that we worked with when we started doing multiplication word problems. First 3 questions we have 6, 6, 6. Last 2 questions we have 4 and 4. And all together, look, they use P for points. All right, another way you can represent the problem is with an equation. Sometimes you can write more than one equation to represent a problem. Both equations below show a correct way to solve the problem. So let's look at these equations and figure out where these numbers came from. 3 times 6 plus 2 times 4 equals P. Oh, it looks a lot like the one that we did. And then they did the work. 18 plus 8 equals P, 26 equals P. Let's look at the other way. 6 times 3, okay, that's really what we did because we know multiplication, we can, it doesn't matter which factor comes first, plus 4 plus 4. Oh, so they didn't do 2 times 4 for that. They did 4 plus 4, which is the same thing as 4 times 2, okay? Then they did 18 plus 4 plus 4 to get 26. All right, Lola's total score was 26 points. How can you tell if the answer is reasonable? Reasonable. Lola scored 6 points on some questions and 4 points on others. You can think of it as scoring 5 points for each question. 5 times 5 equals 25, so the answer of 26 makes sense. So let's talk about that word reasonable. Okay, you'll start seeing that more and more because if we would have gotten an answer like 172, we would ask ourselves, is that a reasonable? Meaning, does it make sense? Does this answer make sense when she has 5 questions and she scored 6 and 4s? So approximately, remember rounding? We could round these numbers to 5. That's what they did to explain it. They rounded it to 5 and they did, well, if she got about 5 on every question, 5 times 5 is 25. So if my answer was 172 and the reasonable estimate was 25, well, I know something I did was not right. So, oh, I'm sorry, when I erase it really shakes the camera. So we can use things like estimation and rounding to help us think about our problem and check our answer. Since 26 is so close to 25, then we can say our answer is reasonable. It does make sense. Our reflect question for this week says, how would the bar model, this bar model, change if Lola scored 5 points on each of the last 2 questions? How would the first equation change? Okay, so we're changing this equation and we're changing the bar model. So how would it change? If she scored 5 points, what would change up here? In the bar model, what would change? If she scored 5 on the last 2 questions, these 4s would change to what? 5s. The 4s would change to 5s. How would the first equation change? So just like our 4s up here changed, the 4 in our equation would also change because we would want to multiply 5 2 times. I'm going to write the equation would be, and I'm going to write it down here. So 3 times 6 plus 2 times 5 instead of 4 equals P. All right, if you have any questions, please let me know. Bye.